Hello, everyone. It's Gary from Soccer Pro, and today I have the honor of having Christo Manginis with us. And we are going to be covering the mental side of soccer and how Christo is helping youth soccer players today with their mental side of the game. So welcome, Christo. And if you could, please tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved into the mental side of the soccer game.
Hi, Christo Manginis here. So I'm a former player. I played in academies in Greece. I played to the third division in Greece. I then went and lived in the UK for 5 or 6 years. Played in the lower leagues there as well. Got into coaching. Did my undergrad there. I've since acquired a master's from Staffordshire University in sports coaching. Moved back to the US, which is where I was born, and have done a bunch of coaching with club teams, worked for some high school teams as well. And I've recently, maybe the last 6 months or so, gotten into individual coaching and small group sessions. Obviously, when COVID shut down all the clubs, it was tough, and I had a lot of parents, coming to me asking, can we, do something? So we would do some socially distanced sessions, and I had a bunch of different players that I was working with, and I really, really enjoyed it. Of course, I love coaching, teams, but at the same time, I love that, being able to work with an individual, and really it's easier to kind of see the impact that you're having. Whereas, with a team, it's a little bit tough, but when you're working with an individual, it's really can be really, really clear. So a couple of the players that I worked with individually, I then coached club in the fall, and I could just see the difference, and it was really, really great. So obviously, a lot of my work is the technical side of the game, but
can we back up on that point, Christo?
So yeah, for sure.
So you were talking about you coaching these kids and then having them come back in the fall. So were you coaching them just on the technical merits, let's say ball mastery, or were you coaching them on the mental side of the game and also onto the technical side, the ball mastery side of the game?
So obviously, my goal with my individual coaching kind of business is eventually to be able to dedicate more time to the mental side of the game, because I think it's so important. But obviously, if I'm working with an 11 or 12-year-old, I'm not going to sit them down and, talk to them for an hour.
Right.
But, we can go over a little kind of strategies. So one thing I did with a player this fall on my club team is I noticed that, we were playing a scrimmage, and at the end of the scrimmage, we decided to have a penalty shootout because the game ended in a tie. We had 5 minutes, and he missed his penalty. So no big deal. We go to the next session. Over the next month or two, he took a penalty probably 5, 6, maybe 7 times, and he didn't score a single one. Most of them were misses. A couple times the goalkeeper saved them. And I could tell it was really, getting to him. And every time he would step up to take a penalty, I could just tell he was, like hands were shaking, looked a little bit nervous. And this is a really, really great player. Really strong player on the team. Yeah. And, I've worked with this kid for a couple of years and hadn't seen him, be nervous. He usually plays with a lot of confidence. So at the next session, we had a water break. I took him aside, I put a keeper in net, and I asked him, what's your favorite song? And he said I don't even know what it was, some rap song. And I asked him,
and it's funny you didn't know the title.
Yeah, I know. It made me realize my age, because, I'm only 26, but yeah, I guess I'm a little bit out of it when it comes to that. But so I asked him for his favorite song, asked him if he could hum the chorus either out loud or in his head while he took the penalty. And for the first time in probably 2 months, he scored, grabbed the ball again, wanted to take a penalty again, took another penalty, and I could just see him smiling. And so, obviously, this is a one-off thing, but it's actually something that I had looked into during my master's program, where we talked about athletes choking under pressure. And this was, a little trick that some athletes use to kind of not focus on what they were doing. And they could, just do it freely while they were, focusing on something else, something simple enough that they wouldn't, that you can still kick a ball while you do it. It kind of takes your mind off the stress of the situation.
You build that routine.
Yeah, for sure. And I just thought it was so rewarding for me to see him not score the penalty or anything, but just see him take another penalty with a smile on his face, when for, a month or two, he had been obviously very nervous to do that. So obviously with younger kids, it's going to be tough to, focus on the mental training. And it's the same thing with resistance training. I can't have a 10 or 11-year-old. I'm not going to have them for an hour in the gym, but I can kind of bring little strategies and little bits of it into the technical training. So, before they're going to dribble through some cones and then do a 1v1 and then have a shot, we can have them do a simple exercise, like a couple walking lunges up to the point where they're going to get the ball, or squat jumps or something like that. So we just add in little bits. And obviously, as the players get older, you can kind of focus on other things a little bit more in particular sessions. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to have everything. And as they progress, we can focus a little bit more on certain areas.
Yeah, that can be a pretty controversial topic when you get into weight training, resistance training for younger kids. And people will say, well, that's a waste of time. Don't do it. But the reality is soccer kids are pushing each other around out on the field. It's part of the game. So if you have no upper body strength, if you can't get that, I got to get my arm up. If you can't get that elbow out and that arm up and keep a little space on that guy, he's going to be all up in your stuff. So you've got to have some strength. Now, we get some kids in here that are also doing things like gymnastics or judo. And there's other sports. Again, I'm going to pick on judo, wrestling, gymnastics. They take those kids at a very young age and they just pound them with strength training and they become very strong. It's not like they don't respond to it. So I guess I got on a rant there, but and I've got a bias on that because I believe in the strength training. So I'm going to throw this back to you, though, and say, at what point, at what age do you think that you can effectively start throwing in some more resistance training? And again, it may not be where you're out there bench pressing weights, but push-ups, sit-ups, bear crawls, all those things that use body weight to help them get stronger. Even rope climbing is a great one too. Wall climbing, rope climbing, those sorts of things. At what age do you think you can start throwing those in?
So I looked into this a lot because my dissertation for my master's was actually on resistance training for girl soccer players. And I was interviewing coaches about it. And obviously, it is a controversial topic. And, some people have very positive opinions of it. Some people, have very negative opinions of it. As far as the evidence goes, from the evidence that I'm aware of, to maximize kind of on the benefits of resistance training, you would want girls to start doing some kind of formalized program. Obviously, it's going to be looser than if you're working with an 18-year-old, but some kind of program at around 9, and boys should start about a year or two later. But a really, really big thing for me, and I actually just posted this on Instagram and Facebook the other day, I posted a video of my niece, who is 6 years old, fooling around with her 5.5 pound barbell that I got her for her birthday a year ago. And it's not, it's not heavy at all. It's not crazy, but it's fun for her. And the sooner you start doing something, you build that habit, which is really, really important. If you're not going to get someone into resistance training until they're 15 or 16, it's going to be a lot tougher. But my niece, she's fooling around with her barbell at 5, 6 years old. When she's 10, 11, 12, she's in a much better position to, she's not going to be intimidated when she's, if she starts doing some, formal kind of program. She's going to, have a little bit more of a clue, and she enjoys it now. So hopefully, she keeps doing it. She keeps enjoying it. By the time she gets to, 9, 10, 11, 12, she wants to do it. And I think that's really, really important. So it's not about building strength for her right now. It's just about having fun, building a habit, and so that she's prepared for, later on when it is really, really important. And I totally agree with you. Some kind of strength training is absolutely essential for, almost any kind of athlete for, performance benefits. Injury prevention is a huge one. Reducing injury rates through resistance training. It's one of the only ways that you can actually reduce rates of injury. There's a lot of evidence on different things that people have tried to reduce injury rates, and most of them just don't work. Resistance training is huge. And then also they're tying this back into the mental side of the game. There are so many mental benefits you get from resistance training. So your mental health, reducing symptoms of depression, body image concerns was a big one for me in my dissertation, because I was talking about young girls, and resistance training can help with that. So there's so many benefits, and it's not just about being a better player. It's about staying healthy as a player, and also being mentally healthy as well.
The COVID shutdown has definitely thrown a wrench into everyone's training plans. And sometimes we're seeing coaches coming back and saying, hey, now that I'm taking a different approach at this, we're doing more individual training, we're doing more ball mastery, we're doing more skills development versus just getting out on the pitch and then doing the 1v1s, 2v2 small-sided games and scrimmaging. So they're actually seeing some benefits out of this individualized soccer ball mastery development type activity. So when you're looking at your club, your teams, you've gone almost full circle. You've had regular development, and now you're doing more individual development. And now some of these kids are coming back out onto the field. What are you seeing from your perspective as the benefits or the detriments to this type of development?
Yeah, so obviously, it was a tough situation for everyone. Sports were hit particularly hard, and I know it was, rough for a lot of people. But I think it was also an opportunity to, do something a little bit different and see if it worked. And I think if I had been a player when this happened, if I had been in a kid and I had been playing, I would have been on the ball, for hours every day, regardless of if I was training with my team, regardless of if I had a game, that coming Saturday or Sunday. For me, at the youth level, the emphasis is on the training, not the games. Games for me, up to, I was trying to think of what age, but up to a certain age, the games, it's just another training session for me. The result doesn't matter. It's about just, playing more and, I try to frame it that way to the kids, that this is another opportunity to learn. If we lose, if we win, that's not what matters. We'll be back at training the next day. So I think it's definitely tough, without having games. But at the same time, it's a challenge to motivate players sometimes. But that's a challenge for me as a coach. I'm happy to take that on. And the players that I worked with during all the lockdowns, it was some of the most rewarding coaching that I have ever done. And especially coming back this fall and seeing some of them, high school players that I worked with make varsity.
Yep.
One player made varsity as a freshman. That was amazing. Seeing players work, play with me at the club level and get into games, and it looked like they hadn't taken any steps backward. They had taken huge leaps forward in terms of their performance from last winter, which was the last time I saw them in games, or at futsal, or last fall playing on the field. It was a whole 9 months later or so, but they had definitely improved. So if you did keep working, I had some players doing 2-3 sessions a week, and they definitely improved. So it's life's not easy. You're always going to be put in difficult situations. When I was a player, I remember there's lots of things that will get in the way. But as an individual, you just have to kind of, figure out, be a little bit creative, figure out a way to work around it, and then obviously work really hard as well.
And sometimes the mental side and the physical side are tied together. I mean, when you look at a kid's ability to get a better first touch and then transition the ball from the right foot to the left foot and then execute that left-footed pass, when they can do that really quick, that builds their confidence up. And the more their confidence gets built up, the more they're able to not panic in that situation, so that mental stress will drop. So mental side, physical side, they go hand in glove in a lot of cases. Sometimes the mental side, of course, is just an obstacle, isn't it? I mean, like the PKs, these guys getting up there and being so fearful of missing the PK that they miss it. So if we were to take, let's say, just a simple strategy for the physical side and one simple strategy for the mental side. And when I mean simple, what I mean is like, well, how can we get the low hanging fruit? What is one action item that a coach could take away from this call and say, look, I'm going to implement this into my program, and I'm just going to go for the biggest bang for the buck. What do you think that might be from your experience on doing this?
Okay, so I'll start with the physical side. I would do some very, very basic form of resistance training. So this would be obviously body weight, because this just makes it easier. When I've talked to players, a big barrier is they don't have time to get to the gym, or they don't have a gym to go to. You don't need a gym.
Or gyms
I like
to
go. Yeah, exactly. I like to go to the gym, and I encourage players to go to the gym, but you don't need to. So it would be a really, really simple program. I've had players doing this, this past fall when gyms were closed and they had to work at home. So, it'd be really, really simple, progressing some a couple different body weight movements. So it'd be some type of squat, some type of hip hinge. So, like a single leg Romanian deadlift would be a really, really good one. Some kind of calf raise. So I do just, single leg calf or double leg calf raise on stairs, single leg calf raise on stairs, and then a Copenhagen. So that's a little bit more of a complicated exercise, but also Nordic hamstring curls, which are really, really easy to do if you have a partner. So, obviously, if someone was watching this and didn't know what those exercises were, they could either follow me or just type that in on YouTube. And there's, loads of people who will, have a video explaining that. So yeah, it'd be a really, really simple program. The thing I would emphasize though, is that we're progressing on these movements. We're not just doing the movements just to do them. You want to be getting better at them. Just like when you go on the field and you're kicking a ball around, you want to be getting better at whatever you're focused on. If it is first touch, if it is, dribbling, if you're, doing one-on-ones with someone, you want to be progressively getting better. You're not just doing it just to say, oh, I trained today. You want to see some sort of improvement. As far as the mental side of the game,
well, let me interrupt for 1 second. You mentioned the YouTube channel where they could go and find some of these exercises. You have a YouTube channel and an Instagram channel, I think, right?
Yeah. So
and what would those be? How would they find you?
Yeah. So YouTube, you can just search Coach Christo. Only have a couple videos so far, but I'm actually uploading one later today. And then I'll have, a couple more coming in the next couple days, couple weeks. And then Instagram is Coach Christo Manginis. So my last name as well. Obviously, some places I could get Coach Christo, which was my preferred name. And some places I had to go, I had to add in my last name as well. So Facebook is Coach Christo Manginis. Instagram is Coach Christo Manginis. So those are kind of my places I've been, posting recently. Gonna keep doing that. Yeah.
Okay, so I interrupted. Now bounce back to the mental side. What's a simple thing for the mental side for these guys?
So this is actually the video that I'll be putting out a little bit later today. And the whole idea behind it is to not focus on a single play and not let yourself be defined by a single play. And that's whether the play is a good play or a bad play. You don't want to be defined by one amazing goal you scored 5 years ago. We all know somebody who is, still talking about that amazing moment from 5 years ago. Don't be that person. You should be looking, for kind of consistency in your performances. And obviously, if you're focusing on a good play that you made, in the past, it's very easy to kind of think of yourself as a great player, and you don't need to put in any work anymore because you've already done that. But you should be looking to, either make that consistent or even, build on it and be even better. And then if you're focusing on a single bad, play or a single bad game, it's very easy to get in your head, I missed this chance that I should have scored. Now I'm someone who misses. But, that's not who you are as a player. Who you are as a player is the cumulative, performances that you put in week after week, year after year. And that's, the best players in the world, they're, putting in consistent performances. It's not about one game. It's about, multiple. And I think just sometimes, if I remember when I was a player, if I missed an easy chance or if I didn't score a goal in a certain game, I'd be in my bed and I'd be, not able to sleep. And I'd be like, oh, I should have scored that chance. I should have been there to, score that chance. But, that's not what is important. What is important is, the whole performance over an entire season. So look at that. Don't kind of nitpick the little things and let those kind of get in your head.
That can be tougher as a defender. As the father of a defender, I used to tell my daughter all the time, I would say, look, the strikers, how many times did they score? And she'd be like, oh, once or twice. And say, what happened to all the other times they had the ball? Well, they lost it. Okay, you lost it once. You just happen to be a defender. When the defender loses the ball, it's catastrophic. More so when a keeper misses the ball.
Yeah,
right? That's the ultimate catastrophe. But it depends on what side of the field you're on, whether losing the ball is a big deal or not. And the strikers, they're the type of people that are like, well, lost it again, but it's almost like an expectation that they're not going to score. And that's why the scores are 1-0 or 2-1 or, versus basketball where it's 94-78 or 112-120. They're scoring all the
Yeah.
time. That's all they do is score. But soccer is different. So when you
Yeah.
start pulling it back, okay, the strikers usually are easy to manage. But what do you do with defenders when they get scored on and now all of a sudden they've got that mind funk going?
Yeah. So, going back to what I was saying, if a mistake happens, it's really important to realize that sure, a mistake can happen, but you're the same player before the mistake and after the mistake. You haven't changed unless you let that mistake kind of, change you. So, just not focusing on that single thing, just, focus on your performance overall. And, if you had a bad game, you're going to have a bad game. Mistakes will happen. That's just how soccer is. If you play for any period of time, you're going to make mistakes every game you play in, no matter what level you're playing. I mean, I think a lot of players kind of get those little moments of play in their head, whether it's good or bad, and then they define themselves off that. Where or you should know what the player that you are, and if you don't look at the last season you played, all the games, put them together, and that tells that paints a picture of what kind of a player you are, not the single things that we're kind of picking out.
Now you're helping your kids locally from the general area. Are you doing anything remotely? Are you helping kids on the mental side, training side, putting together weight programs for them? What are you doing for people that may not be in your area?
So I am doing some remote things. I had a couple high school players that I worked with. What I would do is I sent them a training plan. A lot of them I had in person at first, but that doesn't need to be the case. Obviously, we can go over exercises and stuff on Zoom or on a phone call. And so I would give them a resistance training plan, and then I would check in weekly or more if they needed it, and I would have at least a phone call every week or every other week, just to discuss how things were going, how we're going to progress, because obviously that's really, really important. And then obviously I do some match analysis I've done for players. So they've sent me full games. I'm working on one right now, and talking about during that, I can actually work in some of the mental things as well when I'm giving advice on a game, which is really, really great. And so I'm definitely more than happy to work with players remotely. I've done a bunch this fall, especially when players were going back to school or going back to, wherever they were playing. So, and that's very interesting to me as well, the resistance training, but also, match analysis and the mental side of the game.
Yeah, match analysis obviously is something we care a lot about at Soccer Pro. That's what it's about. And when you look at the physical side and the mental side of the game, when you're only developing the physical side, and you go to these games and you say, okay, we won, we lost, but we learned something. Well, my opinion is always that you kind of learned something, but maybe you didn't. I mean, maybe you just learned you lost and you didn't like it. Unless you take that video and you do a breakdown of it and you say, okay, why did we lose? What did we do that allowed the other team to beat us? What were we doing well? What were we doing not well? And how can we improve mentally so that our physical game is coming up and our mental game is coming up at the same time? So that match analysis is really, of course, from a biased opinion, is one of the most important things you can do to improve your gameplay. And so many times people won't believe the feedback from a coach until they see it firsthand. If you keep telling a kid, hey, you need to do this, you need to get wider, and he thinks he's already wide in a situation, and I'm just picking up one example, unless they see it, unless you break it down for them and show them on the video, they're never really going to believe it, and they're not going to make that change until they actually truly wholeheartedly believe they're not doing the right thing. Because if they thought they were doing the wrong thing, they wouldn't do it.
They would try
to no one goes into a game thinking, hey, I'm going to see how much I can screw up. So what they're doing is what they think they should be doing, and until you show them they need to do something else, why would they change? It just doesn't make any sense that they would change and give you what you want them to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I'm, going over a match analysis, it takes a lot longer than, I'm not watching 90 minutes and analyzing it as I go. I have to stop, every couple minutes. If I'm obviously a little bit different, if I'm analyzing just an individual player, I can, fast forward a little bit through the clips they're not involved in. But it takes and just that shows you that, if it takes you half an hour to go over 15 minutes of footage, or usually it'll take you a lot longer than that even. If you're a coach watching a game, there's no way you're going to get everything that you could or notice everything. And a lot of the things you notice, you'll miss certain things. So some of the things you notice will be wrong. So, going over games, really, I would recommend, any coach, you don't have to go over every single game, but go over one every once in a while and just see how much you've actually missed, because the best coaches in the world, they're not going to be able to get as much info just from watching a game live. Whereas if you can go over, recording and pause to look at positioning, and pause to look at, what you think a player should decide to do next.
Right.
And also, just one more thing that I do when I'm going over match analysis is I notice a lot of people only focus on mistakes. I think it's really, really important to focus on good things that players do as well. Because just because a player, this time they got the ball, they had space, so they drove forward, pulled the defender to them, and made a great pass. Just because they did that this time doesn't mean they're going to do it next time. You need to reinforce that, let them know that was really, really good that you did. So, whenever I'm, doing a match analysis, I'll always focus, just as much on the positive things that a player does, as on the negative, because one, more enjoyable for the player. So keep them a little bit more engaged. If they're like, oh, he thinks I did really well here. And then at the end, they'll feel good about it. Whereas if you're just pointing out mistakes, it's a brutal experience, right? If that's all you're pointing out. And then also, I think that you can learn a lot from things you've done well. Obviously, it seems a little bit counterintuitive. Why do I need to learn something that I, have already done right? But, just because you did it right once, next time you might mess up. It's good to know that you made the right decisions and why you made them.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. And I always say the same thing. You'll get more of what you praise and less of what you criticize. So put the praise out there and they'll just keep doing it. I mean, if they make a good left-footed pass, if they make a good turn, if they do, just find things in there that you can compliment them on. And I don't mean fake compliments. I hate fake compliments.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because then you lose all your credibility. But real specific complimentary things, the more of those you can throw in there and find that balance of, even if it's one, good thing to every two bad things, every two corrections, that's okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a ratio. You just got to feel it out for each kid. Some kids are more sensitive than other kids, but that positive reinforcement gives you more of what you want. And then the negative gives you less of that bad situation. And in total, it really elevates the game up. But I really like what you said about making a smarter coach as well, because one thing I found is over the years, my commentary in the videos was more frequent. And then over the years, it became less and less and less till I got to almost zero. And the reason that happened naturally was I would hear myself in the video. I'd be like, oh, okay, that was off. That was wrong. I missed that one. That was dumb, right? So I realized how much I was missing and how much my game eyes would lie to me versus the video eyes, which are much more accurate. And, well, I'll just stop there. They're much more accurate. So I'm going to just bounce back here. You're doing these for kids. If somebody has their favorite player, like a parent's child, and they wanted to have you do some game analysis remotely, would you be able to do that for them? Is that a service that you provide as part of your individual coaching?
Yeah, definitely. All they'd have to do is either contact me on social media or Coach Christo Manginis on at gmail.com is my email. So they can contact me there as well. And I've done a bunch of match analyses. I actually during my senior year in during my undergrad in the UK, I worked for Stoke City's academy. The last year they were in the Premier League, and I went over matches for their under 21s, under 18s, under 16s. So I have a bunch of experience going over games, and obviously I've watched a lot of soccer, coached a lot of soccer, played a lot of soccer. So yeah, definitely.
And the only other thing I would add in there is make sure that if you do something, and I'm speaking to the parents now, do a couple. Don't just do one and done, because the first one is going to be the most difficult, right? There's going to be the most things to correct. And then there's going to be the corrections, and it's an evolutionary process. So if you do a series of 3 or 4 games or 5 games, the more you do, the more impactful it's going to be for your child, because they're just going to get that correction. And then in the next video, they're going to see how much better it worked. That's the thing. These corrections are going to convert into positive, like, hey, instead of turning into pressure, now you did a great job of turning away from that pressure. And look what the result was. And that's when their game really starts to take off, when they start to get that much greater game intelligence that makes life easier for them. And that's the whole thing. The whole game gets easier for them out on the field, so they enjoy it more. They're not in a panic, they're not in a rush, and life gets easier for them, and they just enjoy the game more. So I really would recommend, if anyone can get a hold of Coach to get this done, to do it, because it will make a dramatic difference in your favorite player's game. So anyhow, let's bounce back to the contact. We've been talking about what you can do for them on the physical side, the mental side, the game analysis side. I'd like you to give your contact information one last time. You've got a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel, and your email address.
So yeah, it's Coach Christo Manginis on Facebook and Instagram. And then my YouTube channel is Coach Christo, because that was available. And then Coach Christo Manginis at gmail.com. Is my email. So yeah, those are my contacts.
Well, thanks again for coming in. I really appreciate you taking the time and speaking with us today. And I look forward to getting back together and, delving a little deeper into some of these areas that we've talked about today. Maybe we can get deeper into the mental side, or the video analysis side, or the weight training side. But, we've had a great overview, and, now I'd like to circle back sometime in the future and see if we can't get a little more deeper into that. So I hope you'll be able to make some time for us again.
Yeah, definitely. No, this was great. Really, really, interesting stuff.
All right. Well, thanks again. And you have a great weekend, and I look forward to speaking with you again. All right.
Yep. You too.
Bye now.